You're listening to another podcast. A podcast not only of reviewing and discussing, but of discovery. A deep dive into a classic show whose influence is immeasurable. Your next stop? Anthology. Hello and welcome to Anthology, presented by ObsessiveViewer.com. I'm your host, Matt Hurt, and if this is your first time listening, Anthology is a podcast where I review The Twilight Zone as a first-time viewer and other classic and contemporary science fiction anthology series. For archives of all of my episodes, visit anthologypod.com. You can also like the Facebook page at facebook.com/anthologypod and follow me on Twitter at OVAnthologypod and all other social media stuff at ObsessiveViewer usually. All those stuff is in the show notes. And if you'd like to support what I do here, you can become a patron at patreon.com/obsessiveviewer, where you can get access to tons of bonus content, including early access to episodes, full-length movie reviews and commentary tracks, book reviews, TV episode reviews, a ton of stuff, all on patreon.com/obsessiveviewer. Today on the show, this is a big episode, a huge episode. For the third consecutive time, we are welcoming Brandon Cruz, host of Interdimensional RSS, Rick and Morty podcast, Apathetic Enthusiasm, and Submitted for Your Approval, a Twilight Zone podcast. Welcome back to the show, Brandon Cruz. Thank you for joining me on this episode to talk season 3 of Rod Serling's iconic The Twilight Zone. How are you doing tonight?
Oh my gosh, Matt. I haven't talked to you probably in ever.
It has been a minute.
It's been definitely a minute. And when we say minute, it was before the recording of the music started.
Yes.
We actually talked back. It was literally a minute.
Yes.
It's so good to be back here, man. I appreciate it. Thank you for the introduction. Submitted for your approval, which I haven't recorded an episode in decades. Feels like 465, I think. But yeah, like we've done this over and over again. I love having you on the show. I love the Twilight Zone. So I am thrilled to be here, as I am always thrilled to be here.
Yes.
Basically, I'm always waiting by my Google, waiting for that email for you to be like, yeah, let's chat.
Nice. Yes. I'm so glad to have you here. And this is a traditional episode at this point, because this is the third time we're doing this. I have finished the third season of The Twilight Zone. Because of the conceit of my podcast, it's a one-man show. So at the end of the seasons, I kind of go all out, and I have on you to talk about the season as a whole. And then in a future episode, I'll have Tiny from my other podcast, Obsessive Viewer and Tower Junkies, to talk about a Serling related movie. This time around, it'll be The Rack. In addition to the United States Steel Hour episode that Serling wrote of The Rack and the 1956 movie adaptation of it. So he'll be on that. And then I have a third episode in the pipeline with friend of the show and podcaster in his own right, Victor Gamboa of the Outer Limits podcast. I'm very excited for that, because we're going to have this nice, like, kind of we're going to duke it out, or we're going to join together and kind of talk about the Twilight Zone and the Outer Limits. So
it could be like a Godzilla versus Kong thing, but then eventually it's Godzilla X Kong.
Exactly.
Right? You have to start as foes before you come back together.
Exactly.
Great brown gray theater.
Oh yeah. So it's fun to be back. And the elephant in the room is that, yes, I haven't had an episode since June of last year. And I was feeling the itch to get back into Anthology. This is a lot of work on my part, because it's a one-man show, and it's stuff that I put in a lot of effort to it. So it's something that when I go on a hiatus, it kind of turns into a long hiatus. So yeah, but I'm back and I'm excited, and I hope people are back with me here.
It is good to have you back. And
thank you.
And I don't blame you for that one man show, like the anxiety in you. It's this feedback loop of, I haven't done it another week. It's going to get harder next week, so I'm not going to do next week either.
Yep.
And eventually Brandon is like, yeah, I'll do it next week. And then he cancels. And then all of a sudden it's like, then I'm like, oh, damn it, I canceled last week. Can't cancel again. But what do I do? As a matter of fact, you sent me the message this morning like, hey, is tonight still good? And I was like, oh, maybe this is him canceling on me tonight. Okay with that? I'm gonna be okay with that.
Yeah.
It's perfect.
Yeah.
Oh, F.
I did consider moving it again because just because of that, the pressure of it and everything, just to get back into it. But a little peek behind the curtain is I actually I'm doing something different for season 4, different in terms of the production of the podcast. So in the proper episodes, I review an episode of The Twilight Zone, and then I have a bonus review of an episode of Science Fiction Theater. I have recorded the bonus reviews for 4 episodes so far. So this will be fun because when I get to season 4, after these special episodes, I can focus 100% on the Twilight Zone episode, and then I already have the back half recorded, edited, ready to go, and I just have I devote all the attention to the Twilight Zone, which is going to be fun because those are hour-long episodes. So
they are, yeah. I think there's context switching between going from a Twilight Zone, doing some research on an episode, like the characters and all that stuff, and then being like, okay, now I'm going to context switch, change my brain of I'm going to watch science fiction theater.
Yeah.
Let me think about this. Okay, now let me go back to the Twilight Zone. And like that back and forth takes you out of a flow. Like it's
absolutely. Yeah, and like with the Twilight Zone segments, like the Twilight Zone reviews, I'm watching the episodes multiple times. I'm taking notes every time, making sure I have all my bullet points and everything. And then it's when I'm done with that and ready to go, I spend 25 minutes watching science fiction theater, and then an hour into the recording, I'm recalling the things I saw an hour ago in science fiction theater. So this is a better style for me, I think.
yeah. Like splitting them up and doing them in bulk. It's funny you mentioned the hour-long episodes of season 4. So this last weekend, I mentioned to you beforehand, I interviewed a couple of guys from Smiling Friends, Michael Cusack and Zach Hadel.
Nice.
And Zach Hadel mentioned, as he was talking to another interviewer, he was like, yeah, it's like, the Twilight Zone, like you end up going from 30 minutes to then like an hour, and like you lose something when you make that change. And I was like, I had like a Sharpie. I wrote it on the back of my hand. Okay, I'm gonna bring this up to him later.
Nice.
So in my interview, I did bring that up again.
That's awesome.
So anyway.
Nice. Anyway, yeah. So let's kind of, this is going to be kind of a loose conversation about season 3 overall, kind of getting back into the swing of things with anthology. But I want to ask you first of all, Brandon. I want to ask you, how have you been, and what's new with you? And if you want to plug your podcasts proper, let me know what you're doing in terms of all of the podcasting stuff.
Okay, yeah. Well, I mean, thank you. Putting my advertising for my own stuff at the top of the show.
Oh, of course.
Thank you so much. Next, I'm gonna adopt that for myself.
Nice.
Not that we have anybody important on our stuff, but no. So as you mentioned, Apathetic Enthusiasm. That's a show that we talk. My buddy and I, Travis, my buddy Travis and I, we talk about, basically that's our opportunity to talk about movies, talk about shows, talk about things that we're up to, and we've gone through so many iterations of that show where it's like we're tech podcasts. They're like, well, we're not famous enough to get any of this tech to review. So let's not do that. And we're like, well, let's do Netflix rewatches. And we're like, no, that's boring. And I was like, let's talk about psychology. And that died real fast because Travis is not interested in that. But it just turned into an opportunity for him and I to just chat about what's going on in our life. We talk about like Lorcana and 3D printing and painting, just random stuff. Interdimensional RSS, the unofficial Rick and Morty podcast. That's the one. We started that in 2017, right before season 3 of the show started, because we both realized there wasn't really a Rick and Morty podcast dedicated to the show. And so we started it up back then. We've been going strong. Over the years, we've had some interviews with voice actors, writers, directors. The most recent interview we had for that show, we had the new voice actors, Ian Cardoni and Harry Belden, who do Rick and Morty, and Chris Parnell, Sarah Chalk,
awesome.
Spencer Hammer. Like it's so cool, like being a part of that. We're like being kind of recognized, and like they know who I am, which is that's the strangest damn thing that like some unknown podcasting from his small office, which is super hot right now, that they would know who I am. But anyways. So yeah, we're doing that. We're covering the show still. Some more interviews. We do some interviews with other Adult Swim related shows. Teenage Euthanasia. We talked to the creators from that. Smiling Friends. I kind of alluded to that a second ago. Talk to them. Super cool. That's fun. Go check it out. Interdimensional RSS. Yeah, unofficial Rick and Morty podcast. And submit it for your approval. Yeah, someday I'll do some more episodes. Someday I'll finish season 3.
I don't want to rub it in, but I obviously, you being here now, I have eclipsed you. I'm past you now, and that feels good. It feels good to me.
Yeah, it should, and I'm not going to take that away from you because I started before you, but the young will eat the old, they say. And you did it. You did it. You have an overall episode for season 3.
Yeah, and and I've been very privileged to be a guest on Submitted for Your Approval in several episodes, and I appreciate that. If you ever do bring it back, I am game to talk about anything in any episode, of course. It's so interesting. Anytime I talk to you about podcasting and everything, it's just so interesting because we kind of are on such similar paths. Like, we both have 3 podcasts that get different amounts of attention from us. And it's really interesting. And when you were talking about apathetic enthusiasm, having so many different iterations and stuff, that is like Obsessive Viewer for me has gone through so many different things in the 10 years we've been doing it. And like, we started out with topic driven movie reviews, and then we did like movie reviews, and then we did like this whole thing with recurring co-hosts where it was a whole thing, and then now it's more like me and my co-host whenever he's available, and guests from the critics group I'm in and friends of mine that just come in, and it's fun. It's great. I'm co-opting your the portion that I gave you to plug your podcast to plug my other podcast.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, but I've actually been tomorrow. Like, as of this recording, this Thursday will be the 23rd consecutive week I've released an episode of Obsessive Viewer.
Dang.
And it is not as daunting as I thought it would be, but it's I'm in a good groove, and that's why I'm like, I can bring back anthology and double or triple my workload of podcasting because I don't have anything else to do. So
when there's a comfort level of a show that you have, and it just the apathetic enthusiasm, obsessive viewer, where that becomes just a very easy thing to be like. There's not a whole lot of pressure. You're like, I'm just going to create content.
Yeah.
And if someone listens to it, great. If they don't, that's fine too, because this one's for me.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
and that bolsters us to be able to do things like this, do the Rick and Morty podcast. You know, knowing that there's people out there in the community that are like, what a loser! Oh, trying too hard. It's fine. The imposter syndrome for that stuff will fade because we have obsessive viewer.
Exactly. And it's so funny. I wasn't going to bring this up, and it's funny to think about how much I myself have grown. And I swear, we're going to talk about the Twilight Zone and do all like everything here. This is as good a time as any to say, check the show notes for timestamps to navigate around. Those show notes are also at anthologypod.com/102. But in terms of obsessive viewer, I've been tracking the stats and I've been trying to like grow the podcast because it has become stagnant because it's 10 years of podcasting. It's like, you know, the audience I get, like now I need to find more audience. But anyway, in the grand scheme of that, I stumbled upon a review that I got for Anthology that was, I will say that it's a 2-star review. And everything in that, I am not angry or upset or anything by it. I legitimately, like, if that person is listening, like, I very much appreciate like the feedback. Like, this person set out and said like, yeah, this is a great, I'm not going to say all that he said, but basically it was just a very like thought out thing, but it's also a 2-star review. So if you guys like the show, please go rate and review it on iTunes, so that, you know, maybe it can kind of even out a little bit more.
But you know, the thing about those 2-star reviews, but when they're productive,
yeah,
like it's
totally constructive criticism. I value it completely.
Yeah, well, wholeheartedly. Like you're not wrong.
Yeah,
you're exactly right. I haven't released an episode in 6 years. Oh, you're absolutely right. I do try to be funny sometimes. I get it.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening. I still appreciate you listening when you do listen.
Absolutely. And like one of the big sticking points in that review, and this is something like I'm not changing anything for Anthology going forward. Like it's just Anthology, like this is what you guys are getting. This is the show. But one of the things that stood out in that review was that they said that I was too worried about bonus reviews or bonus episodes and bonus reviews. So like, I understand that as someone like wanting a Twilight Zone podcast, but like I don't want to go through the whole rigmarole of like rebranding as a classic sci-fi podcast. Like the reason why I named this podcast Anthology was because I didn't want it to be tied to one specific anthology show. Having said that, I'm still going to be doing bonus reviews of Black Mirror and everything, but I do think I'm going to do the goal that I have set in my mind is that if I'm doing a bonus review, a bonus episode series, I'm going to have 2 episodes of Anthology before the next bonus ep of that series. So like that way it's not like, cause I know I did like solos several years ago where it was when I was in like a hiatus or whatever, like I didn't feel up to doing full episodes and everything. So I like had them, like they went out like for 7 weeks, just like bonus episodes. And I'm like, I don't even like that because like, it's just like, I liked the episodes, but I just didn't like that it was just bonus episode. So
right.
Yeah.
Because bonus. Those are just the regular episodes.
Exactly. If I spend 2 months with bonus episodes, that's just the podcast. Like that's not, that's nothing. But yeah. So anyway, with that in mind, I am going to be reviewing Black Mirror season 6. Is it season 6 or season 5? I don't know. I have a whole big thing on Patreon where I did like a 3-hour episode with my immediate reactions for that. But I'm going to do full episodes proper for bonus episodes, but it's going to be alternating. If I can keep up weekly on Anthology, it'll be alternating weeks. But anyway, yeah.
Lofty goals.
Yes.
Good luck.
Thank you.
I'm rooting for you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I very much appreciate it. I need it. But yeah, let's get into the actual episode and everything.
in mind the timestamp.
Yes. Timestamps, anthologypod.com/102. Before we get into our discussion of the Twilight Zone Season 3, I do want to just give a brief segment that I've been doing in the episodes that I'm calling From the World of Fiction and Science, where we'll talk briefly about just anything science fiction related we've consumed, watched, listened to, read, dreamed, anything science fiction. And Brandon, is there anything that jumps out to you of anything science fiction related that you've watched or consumed recently that you want to talk about?
Yeah, as you were introducing that, I jumped through hoops in my brain, be like, find something sci-fi, find something sci-fi. Yeah. So the first movie I've seen in theaters in a long time, I finally saw Dune.
Oh, nice.
I saw Dune 2 in theaters. So shout out to that beautiful looking film. I never read the novels, so I don't know how much I'm missing. Though friends tell me that a lot of Paul's training sections are, they cut some of that stuff out. There's probably like a Lord of the Rings-esque extended edition version of both Dunes where they have all of that extra stuff in there. But I liked it a lot, and I love that I don't know the actor's name, but he's in People Under the Stairs. He's a David Lynch staple. Like he has a cameo in Dune 2. He's nice. One of the Emperor's guards. Yeah, I dug it. Nice. So yeah,
that's awesome. I'm glad that you got out to see it in theaters because, like you said, it's a freaking gorgeous movie. It's incredible. I plug for Obsessive Viewer. I reviewed it on Obsessive Viewers a few weeks ago, so check that out. It's funny. Dune is a property that I read the first book and the second book. I read the first book like twice, and then I read the second book, and I didn't retain much from it. It was good, but it just wasn't my type of science fiction, I don't think. But
it's too political. It's like I'll just read a history book.
Oh Jesus. Sure. But no.
I'll read the Constitution. That's what it is.
Oh God. I don't know why science fiction needs to be so political these days.
So science fiction is so woke nowadays.
So woke, yeah. Why can't it?
It used to be like Starship Troopers, where there's no political commentary whatsoever.
Exactly, or Star Trek. There was nothing. Nothing. We're of course kidding, please. But yeah, so it just wasn't really my speed. I appreciated the books, but the way Denis Villeneuve just adapted them, you can tell it's a passion project for him, and it's gorgeously rendered, it's gorgeously done, and I think that there's a lot of people that are like, well, Dune Part 1 was just half a movie, and now that Dune Part 2 is out, it's the full movie and everything, and I don't really subscribe to that, but as a complete piece, as a complete adaptation of Dune, both movies are just fantastic to me. So for sure. Yeah.
Have you seen anything sci-fi related that you want to bring up?
Oh.
I want to put it back on your plate.
Thank you so much. This is so unexpected. This is just off the top of my head and not at all for self-promotion reasons, but here in a couple of days on Obsessive Viewer, episode 422 is going to be released, in which I review Godzilla x Kong, The New Empire. Ooh. Yeah, with my friend Brent from awakenthedark.com. I didn't like it all that much. Yeah, it's tricky because I really like Godzilla as a property. I like the old movies. The original movie is one of my favorites. Godzilla -1 last year was my favorite movie of the year. Incredible movie. These MonsterVerse movies, stateside, just feel a little bit hollow. And something that I talk about in Obsessive Viewer that I found
Wait. Are they Hollow Earth?
Yes, they're very Hollow Earth. And something that I found interesting about revisiting Godzilla vs. Kong before seeing Godzilla X Kong is that now that comic book movies are kind of on the way out, and like my interest level in like the MCU and other comic book properties, shared universes of that nature, since that has waned considerably, rewatching Godzilla vs. Kong, I was like, I like this quite a bit more than I remember. And then like I was thinking like, oh, I could do like full on Patreon recordings about the Monarch show on Apple TV Plus. I could really dive deep into this. And then Godzilla X Kong just reminded me like, yeah, they don't really do much with the human characters in these movies. There's nothing really to dive into. They look pretty in terms of the visual effects, but even Godzilla X Kong, like there's something very much missing. Like Godzilla vs. Kong was very vibrant and colorful and like it looked gorgeous. And this is just like, it doesn't have that vibrancy to it. So
of the MonsterVerse movies, Kong Skull Island is the best of them.
Oh, it's incredible. Oh yeah.
It has characterization. It has like the humans have meat to their bones.
Yes.
Which like when Godzilla came out, Gareth Edwards and Bryan Cranston was in it. I was like, yeah, okay, yeah, it's gonna be this way, so cool. and then the human characters are like they're like paper mache versions of human characters, and that's always how I felt about all the. So if you're going to go see giant monster movies and you just want to see the giant monsters, yeah, great.
Yeah.
As a kid, like my son, 12 years old, he loves those movies. Someday he'll grow up and he'll be like, God, but the human characters. King Kong has a metal fist now, but but what about the little girl? Tell me more about her story.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So Godzilla X Kong was serviceable, but ultimately I didn't really like it all that much. I have a review on Obsessive Viewer this week. Check it out. But yeah, so that's all from the world of fiction and science. Brandon, do you want to talk about the Twilight Zone for all the people who have not turned off the podcast yet?
let us talk about the Twilight Zone.
Let's do it. Yes. So, season 3, it's completed. I finished season 3. You've seen all the season 3 episodes, of course. How do you feel about this season overall as it compares to seasons 1 and 2?
I like season 3. It has when I'm watching any of the marathons, some of these episodes stick out to me the most, and I don't know if it's because I just happen to be awake during those points.
Sure.
These episodes come in, so like the jungle. For some reason, the jungle is an episode that I remember. I'm scrolling through the list of episodes here. Little Girl Lost, like The Simpsons. That's a big one.
Yep.
And then then there's lesser ones like 4 o'clock. I don't actually remember what that one is, right?
Yeah.
But as far as the series goes, like I like season 3 before season 5 happens, and season 4, you barely ever see because it's an hour long, and so you miss it in most runs.
Right.
As a first time watcher, what kind of jumped out at you about the season 3?
That is a good question. So I vividly remember season 1 when I was winding down, when I was finishing season 1. I know a listener had emailed in and they had said something to the effect of, like, you've seen the best season of the show. Like, and it was so interesting to me because in my head I was like, yeah, I've seen one of the best seasons of television I have ever seen and will ever see. And like in that moment in season 1, I was like, there are bad episodes? It's not going to be good? Like, is that really the case? And like, season 3 has such an eclectic mixture of incredible, absolutely phenomenal episodes. I'm thinking like The Shelter, The Arrival, A Game of Pool, like blew me away. And like even on the emotional side of things, like the episode The Hunt and The Trade-ins, those episodes like broke my heart. And like it delivered on such an incredible emotional resonance for me that I wasn't expecting, because like The Trade-ins and The Hunt are 2 episodes that I didn't know hardly anything about. Like I know a lot of these episodes from pop culture, like you mentioned, The Simpsons, Little Girl Lost, and there was It's a Good Life is very prevalent in The Simpsons, and like
in the Gremlin one, right?
No, yeah. Yeah. The Shelter too is also another one that The Simpsons riffed on, and like those were good, solid, great episodes for me. But like those little like pockets of episodes that I didn't expect or didn't have like expectations for, just blowing me away, was like, it was such a treat. It was fantastic. The changing of the guard too. Like, oh my God, what a way to end the season. Like, oh yeah. So I don't know where I'd rank it over seasons 2 and 1, because like season 2 has one of like seasons 1 and 2 have my 2 absolute favorite episodes of the series. That's The Obsolete Man and The Monsters Are Due on Maple Street. Those, by my count, are about the most perfect examples of like perfect television from start to finish. There are no 10-star, 5-star. There's no like perfect episode in season 3, but there are episodes where it gets pretty dang close, and I really love it for that.
Yeah, you mentioned Monsters Are Due on Maple Street. It's a famous episode. Obviously, I've got like the graphic novel version of that episode.
Nice. I've got a poster on my wall of it.
Okay. Like the moral of that is good, and it's a more science fiction fantasy version of that story. Mm-hmm. The Shelter is basically the same thing, but a much more realistic version of that story, right? It's saying it takes the science fiction out of it, and maybe that's why I like The Shelter more.
Interesting.
And yeah, I know like somebody out there is probably like, F you.
I'm just going to end the call here.
You like that more than Monsters? And I think it is because there's a little bit more. It's sad because that is more realistic to me, of like everyone being at a party and all of a sudden shit's hitting the fan. Sorry, cussing.
Oh, that's fine.
Crap and shit are hitting the fan, and everyone just starts turning against each other. And then, like in the throes of the pandemic having just happened and, still going on.
Yeah.
We're not really done. Right. Like neighbor against neighbor, like that stuff is, to me, I'm like, no, that's true. Like this is what actually happens. Turn people's power off. That'll piss people off. But I've been in my neighborhood when one of the generators blows, and mostly it's just everyone's like, "Oh, I can't get my HBO Max account."
Yeah, that's so interesting. Like, I remember when the power went out in my apartment, like a few years ago. Like, it was like a thing where it was like it was not going to get done until the next day. And like, it was frustrating and everything. I just went and saw a movie. Like, I like, that's it.
I'm like, I guess I'll go for a run now.
Yeah.
I haven't run in a while.
Yeah.
Might as well do that now.
Yeah. But that's really interesting about The Shelter being that kind of grounded, non-science fiction reaction. That's one of the things that really stuck out to me. Like, that's one of the episodes that I rated 9 stars out of 10. Like, it is that tragedy of the fragility of society or friendship or camaraderie, what have you, just crumbling instantly. Like, I think about in that episode, there are like a couple of times where the one guy starts like doing like the 60s version of racial slurs at like getting around the censors and everything, like basically discriminating against his friend for being like a foreign person. And like the pain of that, the shock of that is so well drawn in this episode, and it just hammers home like how like when you are faced with the deconstruction, crumbling of, you know, like the cushiness of your life, like when so much is at stake, like what are you willing to do to your fellow man, to people that you have broken bread with and celebrated birthdays with? Like it's incredible.
It goes much deeper. This isn't the shelter episode, but the last thing I'd really say is like that there's something superficial about like, hey, you have a ham radio in your basement, you watch the stars at night, versus the very real thing that like prejudice is real. And people judge each other, and you know, we are friends, we have family. Everybody has some issue with somebody else. Like, even if you're best friends, even if you're married, you know, everybody at their core is like, I don't really like that about that person.
Right.
And what the shelter does is emphasize that, these small little schisms can turn into something greater. So anyways, that's why I like it more than Monsters.
Yeah, and that's totally fair. Like I totally get that. And also the ending of the shelter is so profoundly tragic, where it's after everything has settled and everything has come, like they're trying to get back to normal. They're trying, like, immediately, like, oh, well, you know, we'll have a block party to raise money and everything. It's like, no, we've taken everything out of the box. We can't put it back in. Like everything is ruined now. Like you can't repair it.
And I know I said that was the last thing I was going to say, but again, Monsters, it ends with one to the other. There's so many other Maple Streets. And this one is the tragedy of this is, I mean, the crisis was averted, but the long-lasting ramifications of what transpired in the episode, those can't be put back in the box.
Nope, absolutely. And like, it's one of my favorite like closing narrations. I'm not going to recite it or anything, but just like, actually it's pretty short, so I'll just recite it. Like, Soling just says, no moral, no message, no prophetic tract, just a simple statement of fact. For civilization to survive, the human race has to remain civilized. Tonight's very small exercise in logic from the Twilight Zone. Like, that stuck with me so much after watching it. Like, I have shared it on Facebook numerous times at certain points in the recent last several years. And like, it's just, it's so profound and so beautifully done.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. So, I think, you know, kind of along those lines, I think in season 3, with any show really, if you go multiple seasons, if you're an anthology, you start to see some recurring themes, and so you do see some things that start to be familiar. Obviously, we just talked about The Shelter and Monsters ad nauseum, but I think like in season 3, we start to see other things like that too. Yes. There are some things that like are they're their own thing, but the themes of, you know, people being jerks and doing bad stuff like that happens a lot, which I've noticed.
Yeah, and there is a pretty noticeable trend in this season. Maybe not trend, but noticeable trend in this season of I don't want to go so far as to say recycled plots or anything, but like, I mean, like, what is Cavender is Coming, if not the same episode from season 1 that I'm blanking on the name now, with the dude, the discombobulated dude.
The guy who's selling stuff?
No, the guy, Mr. Beavis.
Oh,
yeah. Like, it's, and I believe, if I remember correctly, I think Cavender is Coming was supposed to be, like, it was like written in that way. Like, it was somehow connected to Mr. Beavis in some way. Like, it was inspired by it or something. I don't know. But like that, and then like we said, The Shelter and Monsters Are Due on Maple Street. There are other episodes that I'm blanking on in terms of like how they relate to the first. Oh, Nothing in the Dark, another episode about kind of the specter of death and like as an personified person. Persons or persons unknown. Yes,
like that feels like it's a variation of, I forget the episode title, but
I think A World of His Own, or
yeah, where it's like, he's an actor.
Yep.
You know, like, okay, all right, you know, it's not the same, but very, very similar.
Right.
Yeah, and let's see. There's another one that I found there. Oh, like The Little People, to a certain extent, like anything with like the desert, like those feel like okay, wait, which one is this? Is this I shot an arrow into the air? No, it's The Little People.
Right.
And then I'm like, wait, is The Little People the one where they wake up and they're hungover, but they're actually in like a dollhouse for an alien?
Yeah.
You know, those are those types of things. By the way, Little People, that's another Simpsons episode.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah. That's so great. Yeah, it's so interesting, and like there are some episodes also to kind of pivot a little bit. There's some episodes that are very unique from the previous seasons. Like there are a few that stick out to me in terms of their uniqueness and kind of breaking away from that Twilight Zone formula to an extent. So I'm thinking of like the opener of the season 2. No dialogue, just two people in a post-apocalyptic world, opposing factions in a war that has long since been settled and done, and the world has ended, and it's a love story between them. Like, that's an incredible episode in terms of structure and communicating the themes of it and the chemistry and body language of the two characters. It's really beautifully done.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's a good opening episode of the season, right? It's and what I like about that is, yes, it starts with like, oh, it's a war, we don't know where it is, and then it turns into from a science fiction into more of a biblical allegory.
Yep.
So I dug that. I dug that aspect of the twist. And Twilight Zone doesn't always have twists,
right?
Despite what everyone thinks, but that was like, okay, I see where this is going. I a couple of seconds ago I mentioned I shot an arrow into the air, which was the wrong reference, but that is actually looking at episode 2, The Arrival.
Yes,
right. That is more along those lines, where shot an arrow into the air. That's when they're like, they start disappearing a little bit over time.
Oh no, that's I shot an arrow into the air is the guys that are they think they're on an asteroid. Yeah,
that's right. And then they see the
episode you're talking about is When the Sky Was Opened.
Thank you.
Yeah.
This is why I need to do a podcast.
Yes. But The Arrival, like I actually love that episode because of that. Like, I'm not too hot on the ending, the reveal at the end. That's an episode where it feels like it's writing toward an ending that's not satisfying, or not the big bombshell ending or big profound ending. It's more of
like a whimper.
Yeah,
Like,
it's
oh yeah, you were crazy, man.
yeah, exactly. But the process of it leading up to that, the mystery surrounding it, the way that it's kind of presented as like as an investigation, like a procedural, I was all into that. I was really, really invested in that, and I really liked it.
In that way, it reminds me kind of like of the Scorsese film Shutter Island. Right?
Oh yeah,
where it's like, oh, it's an investigation, and they're like, what is going on? What's happening here? And all of a sudden, it's like, oh, well, he's crazy.
Yeah, yep. Turns out what you should have been investigating was yourself. So
we are the Walking Dead.
Exactly. We are the Arrival. This is like, I don't remember if I mentioned this in the actual review for a game of pool, but that's another episode that stands out. Like, that was a 9 out of 10 episode for me. And it's just so, as someone, and I think I did go on like a little bit of a not rant, but a sidetrack in the episode. So I apologize for the repeating thing, but this was like 2 years ago at this point. But a game of pool, I was so fascinated by it because it is about a central character who is self-obsessed with one thing. It's a hyperfixation on one thing that they want to do and they want to accomplish. They want to be the best at. And while that's not what I'm doing, like, I do have a fascination with podcasting and doing this creating content thing and everything. Check out patreon.com/obsessiveviewer. But but like, just seeing that demonstrated, seeing that passion for something that borders on obsession was so well drawn, and it resonated with me so much in a game of pool that it was really kind of it put me in an introspective light. And also, this is so dorky, so incredibly dorky, but like, there's a moment in a game of pool where, in context, I watched a game of pool like right around the time that I upgraded all of the podcast equipment. I was very excited about it. I got like good gear for the podcast and everything. And there's like a moment where I think it's where Fats Brown takes out his pool cue from like a case, and he is doing it so delicately. It's like, this is like a talisman for the thing that he, like, his gift. And I'm like, I get that when I press the record button on the RØDEcaster. Like, I kind of get that. I get that when I take the microphone out of its case. I kind of understand that kind of level of just like respect you have for the tools of the thing that you're passionate about.
That's one of those episodes that always stands out to me.
Mm-hmm.
That I always enjoy because Jonathan Winters is great, and Jack Klugman, of course. What I like about that episode is always the fact that Fats Brown wants to, like, he has to play his best, but he also is like trying to be like, hey man, you don't have to do this.
Yeah. Yep.
I'm if I win, I have to keep doing this forever.
Mm-hmm.
That sucks. Yeah. But you don't have to be doing this forever. Don't do this to yourself, right?
Right.
And it's like a weird. It's like it's a little bit of mentorship. Like it's a little bit of like, don't touch the hot stove.
Right.
Don't touch it. Don't. You just listen to me. I'm not going to tell you what happens. It's not going to be good.
Exactly.
And you know, it's good job for Jack Klugman.
Yeah.
He wins in the end, but then he's like, paging.
Yep. Yeah, I don't even remember his name. Jesus. Yeah, it doesn't say his name in the plot summary, but yeah, and Jack Klugman, man, like, I feel like he has one more episode in the series at this point. I think in season 5. In Praise of Pip. Okay.
Yeah.
And like, I get into this mode when I'm watching the show and I am doing my research and everything. I'm like, oh, this is the 4th episode of his 5 appearances on the Twilight Zone. And like, I get into this moment, this kind of like melancholy where I'm like, I only have one more episode of Jack Klugman in the Twilight Zone. I only, like, this is the last time I'm going to see so-and-so in the Twilight Zone. And I'm like, I have such a deep admiration for so many of these actors that I just want to see them in more things of this stature. And it's kind of a bummer. I'm like, I'm going to miss old Jackie boy.
You don't have a show called The Odd Couple that you
yeah
start reviewing.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
Which the next episode of that season, The Mirror, right, where Peter Falk is dictator. Let me just throw this out there. If anybody wants to do a Columbo podcast, because I fall asleep to Columbo nonstop. It's a good show. One more thing, Peter Falk, great, so great. And this episode is maybe not the best,
sure,
but I love seeing his fake eye.
Oh yeah, it's something that, like, this episode is one of those ones that grew on me the more and more I watched it, both in preparation for the episode about it and just in passing and like watching it like during, like, I don't know if I watched it during the marathon, but like that's another thing. Just a brief aside, since we mentioned the marathon, I didn't participate in it this year, but the previous year I did, and I was so pleased with it. I was so excited about it. I was so happy with it because I was able to look at the schedule and I scheduled out a ton of tweets to go out. And then the reason I didn't do it this year is because Elon Musk is a freaking dork and has ruined Twitter. And like, you can't even schedule posts. You can't even, like, through like Libsyn, where I host the podcast, I do like posts that I schedule out. And like, I can't do that with Twitter because Elon Musk is a dork.
He messed with the API.
Yeah. It sucks.
It's called X. Matt.
Oh yeah, X. Yeah, nope, nope. There was a great TikTok that someone said that was the caption was we run into someone who refers, anytime we talk to someone who refers to Twitter as X, and it's like a woman and she's holding a glass and she just covers the glass with her hand and walks away. It's like, yeah, I get that.
Right.
Yeah. Right. But the Mirror grew on me. It was solid. And like, it's funny that viewing it in the 2020s now, like, there is a certain level of issues you can raise with it and everything. But I would wager that, like, in terms of his performance and his kind of appropriating nature of it, I guess. But there's an episode this season that I can't reconcile. Like, I tried so hard to reconcile it with like my 2024 brain.
With what it's trying to say. You're like, I understand what you're trying to say with this, but hey, makeup department, I can't get behind it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I think we're tracking the same one.
Yes. Are you aware of the episode that I'm referring to?
Are we talking about Equality of Mercy?
No, I didn't even think of that.
Oh,
okay, yeah, totally.
That's what I'm thinking about.
Okay,
well, it's like, hey,
I wasn't.
Japanese makeup.
Yes. Oh my God, I didn't even think of that. Let's talk about that, and then I'll talk about the one that I couldn't do.
Oh crap! All right, so yeah, Equality of Mercy, Dean Stockwell.
Yeah.
They're like, there are some Japanese soldiers that in a cave, and Dean Stockwell's an American lieutenant. He's like, no, kill him, don't show him any mercy. And then all of a sudden he opens his eyes, and all of a sudden he's one of the Japanese soldiers.
Yeah,
but he's an Asian face. And
yeah,
it's like yeah, my son is 12. We watched
Mhm.
Blazing Saddles recently,
Mhm.
and it's like a different time. Like there's
Yeah.
you got to remember that when we're watching it.
Mhm.
And so in 61, this comes out. I'm like, I'm trying to remember it. I'm trying to remember the context of the time.
Yeah.
And they don't even show one episode of Community on streaming because
Right.
the drowse.
Yeah. Or the there are a few episodes of It's Always Sunny that aren't on streaming because of
Murtaugh or
yeah, yep.
the Lethal Weapon remake.
Yeah, it's rough. I'd completely forgotten about that's an issue. I do appreciate what they're going for with that, and I do think that there's a level of respect that I can levy at this episode with regard to the themes that it's exploring and the messaging of it, because here's the thing. I grew up in a family of both of my parents were in the Marine Corps. So anything like they were of a mind where anything that's like against they didn't really view conflict on a war scale or whatever as a nuanced thing. It's like, oh, America's the best, we need to win at everything, let's do everything, who cares if they have weapons of mass destruction or not. What I appreciate about Equality of Mercy is that it's literally putting the viewer in the perspective of the opposing force, and that's something that it is humanizing something like a group that has been deemed the enemy in pop culture and everything. Not specifically, it's not. Yeah, it's not like saying not specific to the Japanese in World War II. Just in terms of conflict in itself. It's there are two sides to the war. There are human beings who are following orders, just like these people are following orders, and it's really kind of this level of compassion that is being demonstrated and signaled to the audience that you can be a part of the whole oh yeah, let's get them gung-ho, jingoistic, war movie patriotic stuff, but also people die a lot, and it's this interesting kind of viewpoint that's kind of showcasing different perspectives and humanizing dehumanized subjects.
I agreed. That I don't want to say devil's advocacy, but being able to see both sides of a thing, empathy, that's really what it's saying is think about what is happening over there. Think about the culture that is over there. Think about the politics and everything that is going on in a side that you don't necessarily believe in. And so, Asian face aside, that's what that moral is. And so, yeah, we can get past some of that. We're like, yeah, okay, the moral is good.
Yeah.
Now I'm still trying to guess which one.
Oh yeah.
Are the jungle?
No. It's not anything about appropriating anything or anything anything like that.
Okay. All right. Hit me with it. Okay. I'll keep messing it up.
It is season 3, of course, episode number, as I scroll, episode number 25, The Fugitive.
Oh,
it's such a weirdly icky episode that I can't. I rewatched it today, and
she's a little princess.
Yeah, and it's just so weird to me. Even with I am not someone who is going to go ahead and the more and more I scroll TikTok, the more I see that people are woefully just media illiterate, across the board. It is I don't know if it's like a Gen Z thing or if it's just like a case of shortened attention spans and like knee-jerk reactions and needing to have like a hot take on everything. But like people will like the whole thing with when Dune Part 2 came out, like people were complaining because it's like, oh, Paul, why am I not rooting for Paul? He's the hero. Like, why is he doing this at the end? It's like, because there's nuance to his character, and he's not like that. Like there were people like assuming that it was a white savior story when it's not. It's about like the growth of like a dictator and like absolute power, and like it's like so much more nuanced than that. And people are like, well, it's a white savior narrative. It's like, did you watch the
and going back to Dune and not reading the novels, if the novels, I know, make it much clearer that Paul is not a good person.
Right.
He is a dictator in training.
Yep.
He causes genocide, and in the movie they make him. That's really the problematic thing about the movie is they make him a little bit more sympathetic. Like, not trying to be bad. He's just being forced into being bad by fate, by the witches. You know. But even
that's like. It's about like colonialism and things like that. There's just so much more to like, and people just do like, and
the conversations he has are like, I know I can come off as their messiah. I know I can do that, but I don't want to do it. But then eventually he's like, screw it, I'm going to do it.
Yep. Yeah. It's just, it's good. It's great. But anyway, like, I can't really rationalize the meaning, the deeper meaning, the story telling anything about The Fugitive, because it is like at its like point blank, it's an alien that abducts a little girl and makes her his queen. And it's like, it's so weird to me. Like, yeah, like, I memean, you can say like, well, the time or whatever. And like, it tries to, like, even with the picture at the end where it shows the old man's like true image of him being like a 16 or 17-year-old kid. It's like, that's also really not, you're
not saving yourself.
No, you're really not. And like, it just, it rubs me the wrong way. And I try so hard not to be someone who's like an obnoxious, like, guy current. Like I pride myself on seeing this show through the lens of like the meanings, everything about it, like the deeper subject of it and everything. I don't want to do a knee-jerk reaction of like, oh, this is a weird, like, pedophilic sort of storyline that's doesn't really do much for me, but like I can't really escape it. It's just it's gross to me. I don't know.
I know I'm with you. A couple references like music, right? Like one of the greatest songs. Like, he's got such a beautiful voice. Benny Mardones. She's just 16 years old.
Yes.
For alone, they say. It is a great song, but those first couple lines, like, oh
yeah.
And then the Claire. There's a song called Claire back in the 60s, 70s. Another song. It's like, it's a really good song, but it's like, are you hooking up with a girl? Like, that's really, 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 really creepy.
Yeah.
And so it's just, it's hard to reconcile. It's hard to like be able to look at an episode objectively when it's like so like there's no moral here. What is the moral? Let's go steal little girls. Like, no, we don't like that.
It's and even him calling her his girlfriend early in the episode, like, it just it's not.
And the episode is right.
Yeah.
Don't trust this creepy old fuck?
Exactly. And then like, I'm just fascinated by like, what's the aftermath of this? Like this woman who is the primary caregiver for this little girl, she's gone now. What is she gonna, like, she's a terrible person in her own right and kind of verbally abusive and very domineering, but it's also like, she is this little girl's guardian. Like that is, it's weird. It's weird.
It is. I don't want to talk about it anymore. It creeps me out.
It creeps me out too. But onto brighter topics.
Yeah, let's talk about brighter, creepier topics.
Yes.
I know I'm jumping around here, but let me tell you a story, Matt. When I was maybe 4 years old, I'm in my house. It's like it's not quite summer vacation because I'm not in really kindergarten yet. But I've got a black and white TV. And my mom's in the living room. She's watching all my children. And there's an episode that comes on TV, and it's the Twilight Zone. And it's an episode where there's a dummy.
Yes.
And the dummy takes over the sky. Freaked me the hell out. It stuck with me to this day. Of course, the dummy being that one with Cliff Robertson.
Yes. I watched that one today as well. I rewatched it today. And the thing that sticks out to me with that episode is just the eeriness of the dummy itself and like the voice of it. Like you're not going to leave me in the trunk, are ya? I'm like, that's nightmare fuel, man. Like that's wild.
Dude, and you're like you're a little kid, and you have like I'm 41, so I had my buddy doll. I'm like, whoa, yeah, I love stuffed animals, and all this thing is like, no, they're alive, and they're gonna turn you into one of them.
Yep.
Yeah, no, it ruined me.
Nice.
But that was also the time I'm like, I like the Twilight Zone.
Nice.
You like
it's a core memory. I like that.
Memory.
Yeah. For me, it was when I was in my, at the time, late 20s, and I watched Where Is Everybody for the first time for a podcast. Yeah. Which was the whole start of the project. But the dummy is really good. I really like Cliff Robertson. I'm going to be talking about him in an upcoming episode with Victor Gamboa. There is also not run of episodes, but there are a few episodes that it's something that's a little tricky when Twilight Zone tries to do like a straight comedy, like tries to do comedic episodes that don't really work all that well for me. Like a couple that kind of stick out are like Cavender is Coming. And Showdown with Ransom and Gru was really good at that. Like that was really solid at that. But the one that I was very surprised by, very pleasantly surprised, and I actually really enjoyed, and I think it's a good example of the show in its third season kind of branching out and doing something different while also doing like a bit of stunt casting. And that's Once Upon a Time. That episode just really, I love the reverence that it has for Buster Keaton and the silent era. And like, I still am just blown away by the fact that the entire like opening segment that's like in the style of silent film was like an afterthought late in production. Because that seems like something that would have been in the first draft, like as something that would be just a love letter to silent film and the star of this episode. How did you feel about Once Upon a Time?
Oh, I first of all, I didn't know that it was an afterthought.
Oh, yeah.
That's really cool. I like this episode before I even know who Buster Keaton was. I was like, oh, I like that. That's cool. Like, this is a silent film, blah, blah. And then once Chelsea, my wife, she likes Buster Keaton. She watched a bunch of the movies, and then I was like, oh, okay, Buster Keaton, yeah. Oh, he's in this episode. I understand now. Yeah. It made that leap of my enjoyment of the episode so much greater because I'm like, okay, it is a love letter to him. It is him like back in his kind of element of this is what I do.
Yep.
So I love watching this episode. I'm glad it's out there, and it's one of the Richard Matheson's stories too. So that's always great.
Yeah, and if memory serves, he like wrote it with Buster Keaton in mind. Yeah. Yep.
Versus what Chaplin or
Lloyd.
Yeah.
Yep. Just really good standout episode because of its just the change of style was unexpected for me. I really like that. I do want to, because I kind of feel like we should probably wind down a little bit because I don't want to take up too much of your time.
No. But we're scheduled for 2 hours, and okay, 2 hours is coming up. But it's
good. One that I definitely want to highlight that is such a great cross section of what I love about this show and why I love science fiction in general, and that's Little Girl Lost. It is such a simple premise and such a straightforward thing. Like while watching it today, I kept thinking this can be like set up as a stage production. Like people can do theater with this, and like it's so fascinating to me because it is a testament to the writing and the performances and everything that you have. Basically, the majority of the episode is actors acting at a blank wall with chalk on it, and they sell it so well, and it does such a great job of juggling that dramatic tension, the very terrifying thought of this little girl lost in another dimension, with sparse set decoration and everything, but also elevated like sound design. Like it's such a great just amalgam of what makes a great Twilight Zone episode stand out. Like the sum of its parts is great.
Yeah. A couple things real quick. This episode always gets me confused with, not confused, but like I always feel the same thing with the episode where the kid talks to his grandmother on the
long distance call. Yeah.
That's right. And then like then he goes away for a minute, and he's like, come back. Let him go, Mom. So this one like has, for me, like similar sentiments, but so that's the first thought. The second thought is, when I talked about this on Submitted for Your Approval, one of the things that I noticed and observed was, so she disappears, she's in the wall, and then he calls his buddy who's a physicist, and the physicist is like, yeah, this is probably what it is. He's not like, did you kill your daughter and like hide a body in her? He's like, this is what it is. Let's put an X here. She's in another dimension.
Yeah,
I'm with you, bro. and like, to me, that's like such a talking about like your suspension of disbelief. This guy, let's just go with it. Let's go with it. I love that about Little Girl Lost. Is it's like Professor Frank just being like, we're doing it.
Yep, the third dimension. And I love that if you can buy into that premise, it's really great. And it's just it really, what I kept thinking about as well was, I want a poster of, like, I want to put on like my wall like a poster of that design, the chalk outline on it, just because I think that would be really fun to have on the wall. But yeah, and as someone who has no kids and no like attachments like that, I still felt like, because I'm a human being who's capable of empathy, of course, I felt like that is a horrifying premise. Like, that is a horrifying premise that you, like, not only is your child missing, like she is gone, but she's gone in such a way that you can hear her, but you can't get to her. And like the kind of big reveal at the end that it's like, the reason why I wanted you to do this at this point and stuff is that, we were seconds away from the barrier closing, and like you would have been cut in half. And like just the fact that like this was a finite amount of time that they had without knowing they had that finite amount of time it is so thrilling and well written, in my opinion.
Yeah, it wasn't like a MacGyver thing where it's like,
right,
5 seconds left, 4, 3. No, it's a good thing you got back, because it closed, dude. Yeah, yeah, I dig it. It reminds me of as far as like kids and disappearing, and Minority Report is one of my top movies.
Nice.
And like there's that sentiment of like you lost your kid out of like, oh, you disappeared, you went away for a couple seconds and now your kid's gone.
Yep.
They're like that really sticks with you. And yeah, empathy, because you're capable of it.
Yep, absolutely. We are empathetic human beings. Yeah. Any other episodes that you want to highlight or that we can talk about that we haven't really touched on? I know that there are some big, like, iconic episodes. Any that jump to mind that you want to talk about that we haven't touched on yet?
Yeah. Okay. So there are a couple big ones here. Let me just go through a Piano in the House real fast. That one being that dude's super cynical.
Yeah.
That one makes me feel sad for the one woman who wants to be a dancer.
Yeah, Marge.
Aww.
Yeah.
What a dick.
Yeah, that is, and it's so, that episode is so heartbreaking in its own right. And it's really fascinating because we have a couple of episodes like this where we have the central character being just an an out of this world maniac, a-hole, cynical, misanthrope. Like this episode, and there was another episode that is very, very close to this.
Where he minding the matter?
No. That was season 2. This one and One More Pallbearer, with the guy who, like, he's a millionaire and he brings like 3 people who in his mind have wronged him in his life. These 2 episodes are so interesting because they're so in sync with each other as presenting us with a character who believes them to be the hero of their story and believes them to be infallible and completely like in the right in everything they do, which is a character trait that I have come across a lot in my life as an adult, really. Over the last 4 years, weirdly enough, that has cropped up a lot. 4 or 8 years even. But like in One More Pallbearer, and then like that is such an interesting episode in that it just takes the character and like leaves him on a like he gets his just desserts. But with Piano in the House, that is such a biting, incisive like depiction of what is going on beneath the surface of that character. And like it's so interesting to me that like we have the character of Marge, who throughout the episode, she is like, you get the sense that she is heading off, like she's openly joking about what is presumably her biggest insecurity, which is her weight. And so she is making all of these jokes so that people aren't going to make jokes at her. And like when you have this character that is like a malignant narcissistic person who is capable of that, then have the episode kind of turn it on its head where, I don't know, him being like, him having so much fun exposing all of these people's insecurities and then not having the forethought to think that, oh, if I have my wife play the music, I'm going to be affected by it. And then have him have this just really just incredible display of vulnerability that you kind of feel bad for him, but also he's an asshole. So like, I want him to feel
suffer.
this pain. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, I like that one.
On the Marge thing, you know, as somebody who, you know, in the interview I just had, I'm always like self-deprecating. I'm like, you know, like trying to adjust the expectations, be like, well, I'm not as great as, you know, I suck, you know, but thank you for spending time with me. You know, like that defense mechanism of belittling yourself so that people don't make fun of you for it. And then some jerk with a piano then is like, I know you're trying to defend yourself, but let's break that down. Yep. You're actually insecure about that. You know, that's it's such a cruel thing to do.
It really is. Absolutely. Yeah. Really, really well done. And that was another episode that I knew nothing about. I had no expectations for it, and I was very pleasantly surprised.
Yeah. And he starts that episode as almost like a protagonist a little bit. Then he finds the power of the piano, and he's like, "Oh, okay, I'm going to use this in a bad way."
Yep.
So it turns it around on us, you know, within that first act.
Yep.
Okay, so big episodes of this season: To Serve Man, It's a Good Life. There are 5 characters in search of an exit. That's kind of a good one. Yeah. Between those two, I know I just said 3, but between It's a Good Life and To Serve Man, To Serve Man, another Simpsons reference. That one I always like, and I like what I love about that episode is that it's another one of those kind of like they have like stock footage of like the United Nations. It is presented in such a different way from the rest of the series, where it's like this guy is telling a narrative. He's already on the ship. He's telling us what led to that point. And it's such a different way of telling a story than the rest of the Twilight Zone has, you know, tends to be. Yeah,
having that character introduce that, like having like basically breaking the fourth wall to give his own monologue and narration to us, like that kind of broke my brain a little bit. I was like, what? Like, this is so irregular for this show. And it was interesting.
He's kind of giving like the twist up front. Like, hey, we're going to get abducted.
Yep.
Don't give me food. Let me tell you the story.
Yep.
Kind of weird.
Oh yeah. There was something about It's a Good Life. I just want to briefly mention that when I rewatched this episode, like I love that episode. I think that's another one that is also kind of irregular in that it begins with Serling in front of like a map of the United States and he's giving his narration. It's also it's also so chilling to me because Bill Mumy has a line of dialogue where he mentions it's when he's talking to his father and he says he sees the neighbor's dog outside and then he just mentions like offhandedly he mentions, you know, this one guy bugged me. That's why I put him on fire. And like the wording of that is so chilling to me because it is like it's intentionally worded. It's something like that's why I put him in fire or why I set him in fire or something like that. But like the actual wording of it is like communicating so clearly like this is a child who does not have like he is not capable of empathy like us. And he is someone who doesn't have like his brain hasn't developed enough to formulate like consequences to his actions. And like, he is just someone who is in control of everything. And it's just like, it's such a easy, straightforward line, but the way that he says it is just, it communicates, it's horrifying.
Yeah. I think the 2000s remake of the Twilight Zone had a sequel to it.
Yep.
It's Still a Good Life.
Yep. And both Bill Mumy and Cloris Leachman reprising. Yeah.
Yes, reprising their roles. So I haven't watched that episode. I know generally of the conceit of it, but I think that's interesting where Moomy as a kid in It's a Good Life doesn't have that empathy, and then eventually realizes, oh crap.
Yep.
Oh, this is what my parents were trying to teach me.
Exactly. Like there is I'm trying to see if it's Still a Good Life is on YouTube, because a lot of times, the entirety of the episode is on YouTube. Okay, cool. Yeah, it's a really good episode, and what I like about it is that it not only has him as a grown-up in his like 40s, but he now has a child, and that's the kind of dramatic story that's being told, is that like, is she now, like, is she growing, is she having these powers too, and like, how is this person who is responsible for the destruction of like the entire world outside of this community, how is he going to reckon with the idea of his spawn having the same power and like being in the position that he put an entire community's worth of people in? It's a really interesting episode.
Yeah. I love that they did a sequel to keep the themes and expand upon them. Now, so the last episode I'll mention, since we're on the subject of Twilight Zone the movie segments, is Kick the Can.
Yes. Now, obviously, because of the conceit of this podcast, I haven't seen the Twilight Zone movie. Okay. If I remember correctly, is Kick the Can the one that Spielberg directed?
It is, yeah.
Okay. That has me very excited to eventually get to it, because Kick the Can is another one of those episodes that really made, had a profound effect on me emotionally, just because it's a well-drawn story about youth, nostalgia, aging, and reclaiming your youth. And like, those are themes and ideas that I think Spielberg, especially in like the 80s and 90s and so forth, explored through like his Amblin movies. And like, anytime I see like an Amblin logo, I'm like, oh yeah, this is gonna be like a cool like coming of age movie. But he explores those so well, and like, I'm very curious to see how he handled that with Kick the Can. So anyway, yeah.
How does so, because I've seen the movie and I've seen the episode so many times, sometimes I get them confused. Which one I like more? How does the episode end?
The episode ends with the old man basically, his friend wants to, I'm like, okay, so Charles is the old man who wants to reclaim his youth. And I believe Ben is his friend who wants to protect him. So he's in league with the superintendent of the rest home that they're in to try to get Charles back from the brink of sanity. So the episode ends with Charles going out, and like, I think he has like a bunch of the other residents like go out to play Kick the Can, because he believes that if they play Kick the Can, they'll be kids again. And it's very heartbreaking, because it ends with Ben going outside and seeing a bunch of kids, and like realizing that like he missed out on reclaiming his youth because he didn't believe in Charles, and he wanted to take that away from Charles, even if he had good intentions. But like, it ends with him strolling back into the rest home while the kids are playing Kick the Can. Very, very beautiful and amazing ending. Okay.
So I think I used to say like, yeah, Twilight Zone 1 is better. And Spielberg is very saccharine when it comes down to it a lot of time. But I actually like the movie's ending better, and I don't want to spoil it for you, but Scatman Crothers is in there,
nice,
and it feels more hopeful. It doesn't end with like a dejected, "This will never happen, I missed out," and it ends with hope.
Nice. That has me very excited, and I'm very excited to get to the movie in 2027. Yeah, I'm very excited, and like, it's interesting that like the movie had 5 segments, or I think it was 5 or 3. It was 3 from 3 adaptations and 2 originals, right?
Yeah, it had the envelopes with Dan Aykroyd and Albert Brooks, and then nice. Then it had one with it had Kick the Can, it had It's a Good Life, it had another one with the guy that suffered in tragedy with the kid, and then,
Nightmare.
Yeah, with John Lithgow. And yeah, so that was it, and yeah, I mean, I like the movie.
Nice. I own it, but
you'll watch it.
Nice. I own it, but obviously I'm not going to be able to watch it for 2 more seasons. So
I'll be there. We can do it like a live watch.
That would be awesome. Actually, that would be really cool. I'm going to hold you to that.
Okay.
Again, I'm going to. Yeah, I'm gonna send you a Google Meet invite for like April 3rd, 2028. Let's give us a nice buffer. So yeah.
Dude.
Nice. Okay, so to kind of wind down, we've kind of talked a lot just in general about the season. What I'm hesitant to ask this. First of all, let me postpone this question because I'm hesitant to ask it further. One episode of this season, you could pick one episode. What is it? What's your favorite episode of season 3 overall?
Oh shoot! Oh, now I'm interested in what your original question is going to be. I have to scan 37 episodes.
Yeah.
Damn, I have to. I guess I have to like put myself in the perspective of what stuck out to me most throughout my years of this earth.
Nice.
I already talked about The Dummy, but I think that is the earliest memory I have of the show, and because of that episode, the Twilight Zone is part of who I am.
Nice.
And yeah, it scared the crap out of me as a kid, but it didn't stop me from wanting to watch it as my mom watched soap operas. So, yeah, like, maybe it's The Dummy. Like, It's a Good Life. Some of those more famous ones, those are there too. But The Dummy is it.
Nice. Well done. Like, I respect that. I appreciate that. I think for me, I would probably say a game of pool, because that resonated with me a lot. There's a lot of episodes that resonated with me in big ways, but that was one that I just found to be really, really strongly written and demonstrated the themes and everything of passion and losing yourself to that passion, in pursuit of something, losing things in your life to be the best at something that ultimately doesn't matter. But it's so interesting because I think season 3, like I said before, season 3 is a season of television that doesn't have, for me, a Monsters Ado on Maple Street. It doesn't have an Obsolete Man episode. So it is maybe not my favorite season, but there is so many good standout episodes and interesting episodes that play with the conventions and the expectations of the Twilight Zone in fun and unique ways. Yeah, so I would say probably a game of pool. Yeah,
it's the story of, ambition isn't a bad thing. It's good to have ambition.
Yeah,
but obsessing about ambition, that's when it becomes a problem.
Exactly. And this is as good a time as any to say, listen to the Obsessive Viewer podcast.
Oh yeah, that's your show.
Yeah. Yeah, where every year we do a 3.5 hour episode counting down our favorite movies of the year. So
I would get like 15 minutes and I'm like, what did I watch this year?
Yeah. Oh, we get deep into it. It's great. Yeah.
All right, Matt. Well, what was the question you wanted to ask and you postponed it?
Yes. So I'm hesitant to ask this, but what's in non-spoilers, of course. What should I expect from season 4? Because I know that it is a much maligned season. It's an experimental season that didn't work in terms of the format, and I know my fear is that there's going to be a lot. Like, granted, it's only 16 episodes, but it's 16 hour-long episodes. But also, my fear is that I'm going to dislike more episodes than I'll like. So, if you could soften that blow, or give me hope for it, or completely shatter the road that I'm about to be on, what should I expect from season 4?
How do I do this? I think the thing is as you're watching these episodes, try to think of them, distill them down into their essence of if you can get rid of the fat, what is this episode about?
Okay.
And if you can do that, then I think you'll enjoy it more. There are a good couple episodes. Death Ship is a good episode. It's one of those things. I think Doll. Crap. There's like a Dollhouse episode.
Okay.
Those episodes are good, but they go on a little bit too long. We're like, if the economy of storytelling was a little bit better, I would have enjoyed this more. So it's not bad. It's just, what is the story about?
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of one of the things that about the Jordan Peele episodes, you don't need to make it longer to tell a good compact story that gets an effect out of you, that tells you what the moral is, gives you some kind of feeling about like this. Don't be an asshole, right?
Mm-hmm.
That I know what this is about 10 minutes into it. You don't need to go for another 50 minutes, right?
Sure.
So I think that's the thing about season 4.
Nice. Okay. I'll keep that in mind. I am curious if my exposure to the Jordan Peele version will lessen the impact, it will make it easier for me to digest an hour-long episode of The Twilight Zone. Not that I'm concerned about that in particular, but my main concern is that I won't be as engaged with it as I am with the other episodes. So
that's fair. That's fair. Like like a movie you've seen dozens of times and it's in the background, you're like, I'm not really engaged. It's
right.
I know the basic plot points. I don't need to watch the whole thing.
Yeah.
That can happen.
Okay. So this is going to be a reference just for me, but so you're saying that season 4 of The Twilight Zone is the equivalent of David Wayne's movie They Came Together, in that I've seen that movie like 30 times. I can have it on in the background and I I know every beat of it. I don't know. That's
you can say that again.
Nice. So you're saying that the season 4 of The Twilight Zone is like, I'm not going to do all that.
Yeah. Tell me about it.
I'm so happy that you did that.
It worked. Yeah. David Wayne is my spirit animal.
Oh my God. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. They Came Together and Wet Hot American Summer are just two of my all-time favorite comedies. Yep. Beautiful.
I was going to see The State live.
Oh my God.
This month, and then they canceled the show here in LA.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah. Ooh. Can't dip my balls in it.
Sorry to hear that. But But yeah, let's kind of wind down because it's this has been a blast, but I do have to work tomorrow.
Oh yeah, sorry, man.
Oh no, you're totally fine. This is a blast, and I'm just so glad that I was able to get you on and to do like I have a spreadsheet of episodes for the podcast, of course, and like the ones that I have already recorded the second half of the science fiction theater episodes, I have those outlined, like I have them like highlighted yellow because it's yellow. It's not green yet. Everyone else, all the other ones are red because they haven't been recorded yet. So these are yellow, and I just did episode 102, the Twilight Zone season 3 review with Brandon Cruz. I made it green. Yes. Yeah. So to kind of wind down and to kind of close out the episode, Brandon, thank you so much for joining me, first of all. And if you could tell people where they can find you online, and if you have any other parting thoughts about Twilight Zone before I have you on again in 2.5 years when I finish season 4.
Man, of everything that I was prepared for, this wasn't one of them. I don't really know what to talk about myself.
Yeah.
You can find me on Twitter
Nice.
at Barnyard Cruz.
Mm-hmm.
Instagram at Barnyard Cruz as well. Apathetic Enthusiasm, that's our main podcast where we talk about nothing really important. And then International RSS, Unofficial Rick and Morty podcast. That's on at Rick and Morty Pod, Rick and Morty Podcast at gmail.com. If you care about that, look, we're not toxic. All right, we're not toxic Rick and Morty fans. We're the ones who are like, look, we're fans just like you.
Mm-hmm.
You're probably better than us. It's fine. It's fine. Let's just enjoy the show together.
Nice.
And then of course, Twilight Zone. Like I don't know. We podcast. We just enjoy talking to people and talking to each other, hanging out with folks like you, Matt. I never would have met anybody like you if I hadn't talked about the Twilight Zone. So, thank you for bringing me in here and inviting me back over and over again, and making you very, very tired for work the next day.
It is all good. I planned this out. It's all good. This was the plan all along.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
and yeah, I'm very thankful to have you on the show and yeah, to get to chat with you about this stuff is a very, it's one thing that motivates me to do the podcast so that one day I'll get to do a wrap-up episode with Brandon Cruz about the season. So it's very, very nice to have you on. Yeah, and so we'll end the episode here. I will go ahead and say, check out my other podcast, Obsessive Viewer. I'm doing weekly episodes of that. The format of that show is basically I'm reviewing a new release movie, and then I do a secondary review of usually a new release streaming movie. So it's kind of simple. Like, this is kind of my thing with podcasts, as I'll do double the work in an episode and then by reviewing 2 things. So check that out.
I admire the heck out of you, because I'm like, I barely do any editing. As a matter of fact, the episode we recorded last night, he was going through thunderstorms in Oklahoma City.
Oh, wow.
I'm like, oh, man, I have to do extra work now because he cut out.
Yeah. The funny, what's interesting, and this is not a tangent. The 2-star review I got had mentioned, part of it was like, I don't know what episode he listened to this, but like he had mentioned that like there was an episode where I mentioned like, oh, I'm gonna have to cut that out, but I didn't. I left it in. I don't know how recent that was, but like over the years, like I don't edit the podcast either, like because the equipment I have is so good. Like it's fine, and I like the just natural flow of conversation and everything. But anyway, so it's just funny to me that like Someone pointed that out. Like in episodes where I would heavily edit it because I didn't have the equipment. But anyway.
Sometimes saying, you know what, we'll edit that out later is part of the gag of,
yes.
I'm not editing it out. I'm leaving it in because there's a reaction aspect of that, like, edit that out.
Yeah.
But somebody's like, he didn't edit it out.
Yeah. And don't worry, I will edit that out. Anyway, so check out Obsessive Viewer weekly episodes, movie reviews of new release titles with a rotating cast of guest reviewers on there. Brandon, if you ever want to come on and talk movies with me, more than welcome. To put you on the spot in a recording.
I've been waiting years for you to finally ask me.
Nice.
Come on.
I thought I did. Oh, it's just like it wasn't sent in the email. Damn. Okay.
It's in my spam.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Dang. But yeah, more than welcome to join me on the Obsessive Viewer. I'll show you the spreadsheet that I have. Anyway, so check out Obsessive Viewer. I also have Tower Junkies, which is an infrequent Stephen King podcast where I talk about a bunch of Stephen King related stuff with my friend Tiny, who also co-hosts the Obsessive Viewer with me, and some guest appearances on that show as well. And then finally, patreon.com/obsessive viewer, where I post a bunch of content, early access to episodes. And like right now on Patreon, there's a sneak peek video of one of the science fiction theater reviews that's going to be in like episode 106 next month. So that's up there on Patreon. I also have a special tier that's $4 a month that is specifically for science fiction related stuff. So if you just want me talking about science fiction related things, that encompasses book reviews, commentary tracks, movie reviews, immediate reactions, TV episode reviews, all of that, all about science fiction. Check that out, patreon.com/obsessive viewer. And also, final thing, I'm doing a push.
It's your only science fiction fans.
Oh, yes. 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 But the final thing is like, I'm starting a Columbo. I'm kidding. I'm not going to start a Columbo podcast.
Don't you dare.
Yeah. One more thing. Yeah. But no, final thing is that I'm doing a push of more social media stuff, TikToks and the like. I am going to be posting some more video content on the YouTube channel, Obsessive Viewer Podcast, link in the show notes. This will be in there as well. And yeah, this episode will be, a version of it will be on there as well. So check that out. Links in the show notes. I'm going to start playing us out. Brandon, once again, thank you so much for joining me. It has been a pleasure, and I'm so thankful that I can connect with you about this nonsense that we do. Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. And
play us out.
Yeah.
Get us out of here.
Yeah. And next time on the show, I'm going to be doing a crossover episode with Victor Gamboa of the Outer Limits podcast. So stay tuned for that next week. And we're clear, I think. Yeah. And now, enjoy this short clip from a recent Patreon exclusive episode. For the full episode and more Patreon exclusive content, sign up at patreon.com/obsessive viewer. Subtext and satire of it being Netflix and having Streamberry be the Netflix analog, even so much so as to have that Netflix to-dum thing as well at the beginning of it. I love that. I love that. And this episode is a really good way to bring us into this season in both a dark but fun and somewhat lighthearted tone for the episode. Like, it's playing with some very serious and very serious and serious subtext, serious ideas that have a lot of context for the rest of for like the real world and everything. I mean, it is dealing with generative AI and licensing, and it's dealing with a lot of stuff. Thank you for listening to Anthology, a Twilight Zone and classic science fiction podcast presented by ObsessiveViewer.com. This episode was produced and edited by me, Matt Hurt. If you have feedback, thoughts on our episodes, or just want to connect, you can email me at matt@obsessiveviewer.com. For more information on this show, including a full archive of our episodes and show notes, visit anthologypod.com. And if you enjoyed the show, please give us a follow on social media and subscribe to us on your podcast app of choice so you never miss an episode. Also, consider rating and reviewing the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Audible to help increase our visibility and grow our community. If you want to support the show and get early access to new episodes, as well as a steady stream of exclusive episodes, you can join our Patreon at patreon.com/obsessiveviewer. For information on more podcasts presented by obsessiveviewer.com, visit obsessiveviewer.com/podcasts. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode.